Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. Our guest today is Mauricio Cardenas, who is the finance minister of Colombia. Thank you very much for being on the show with us today.
Very glad to be here.
I want to begin with the negotiations that have been going on for over 3 years between the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, known as FARC, and your government. There has been progress. There were hopes that a comprehensive deal would be reached in March. It did not happen. How close are we to such a comprehensive agreement?
We are very optimistic. We're as close to the end as we've ever been. We think this can happen very soon. I cannot say a date because the negotiations are still taking place, but we think this is going to happen in a matter of months.
In a matter of months. As far as I understand, there's still a few sticking points, especially the disarmament of the armed groups and their reintegration. Is this really the last obstacle before such a deal can be reached?
Well, there are some items in the agenda. We don't get too involved in the negotiations. There is a Chinese wall between the negotiators and us in the government. But the most fundamental aspects of the negotiation have already been agreed to. Issues like rural development, like the way to deal with the drug trafficking issues, issues related to the type of justice that will be applied to the crimes that were committed during the conflict. Things like that, which are at the core of the agreement, have already been agreed to.
So what you're saying is most of the difficult issues have been dealt with successfully. What remains is essentially details, and in a few months, this half a century long civil war, if you will be a thing of the past.
Yes, well, that's our major goal. President Santos has been committed to this peace effort. He was Minister of Defense before being president. He fought the FARC as tough as anyone in Colombia. He delivered many military victories. But his view is that peace and a negotiation is really what will resolve this issue in a more permanent way. And more importantly, there will be a plebiscite. So we Colombians will have the opportunity to vote in favor or against this agreement.
This will be because there have been discussions about how this deal is supposed to be endorsed by the nation. So it will not be by the parliament. It will be a vote, a referendum, essentially, on this agreement.
Yes, the crucial aspect is that the entire population of Colombia supports this. We think that's the most democratic way of concluding the agreement, and there will be a plebiscite, and Colombians will have the chance to have a say. And
do you think they will endorse it?
Well, the polls basically suggest that people will in a majority will vote in favor of the agreement.
Right. There's also a second rebellion in Colombia, known as the Army of National Liberation, ELN. They have proposed a ceasefire, but things are more difficult with them. Do you have the hope that if there is a deal with the FARC, this could prompt a real negotiation with this other group and eventually another agreement?
ELN is a smaller group. Negotiations with them have been more difficult, but now there is an agreement on the topics that will be discussed in a formal process with them. Formal negotiations have not started, but there is the expectations that at the end, all these processes will converge into the more definitive peace in Colombia. And we're optimistic too that negotiations with the ELN will succeed.
Okay. I want now to get more to the economy. Obviously, Colombia has been hurt by the drop in oil prices. This has wiped out a lot of your revenue, your export revenues. Are you still confident that Colombia will be able to post an economic growth this year?
Yes, Colombia has managed this shock in a very successful way. It's been a very significant decline in the price of our main export, oil. That has also had an impact on our public finances. 20% of the revenues of the government of Colombia came from the oil sector. This was back in 2013. We lost that, and we lost a significant part of our exports. But despite that, our economy is going to be able to grow this year at 3%. That's one of the highest rates in the entire Latin America. And this is because we have used the right policies to adjust to these external shock.
Are you confident? We've seen a rebound in the price of oil above $50. Are you confident that it will remain at that level or even go higher?
Yeah, we think it's not going to go back to levels like 30, although we're very conservative in terms of our assessment of the oil market. For example, for our own public finances management, we are assuming an oil price for this year of $35 on average. So that means we're very responsible in the way we run our economy, and we are not making expectations of a very significant rebound in oil prices. We think oil prices are going to remain low, maybe at the 50s, high 40s that we've seen in the past few weeks.
Okay. You're here in Paris to participate in a meeting of the OECD. OECD is essentially known as a group of wealthy countries who have free market reforms in place and so on. Colombia has now cleared 15 of the 23 stages towards full membership. How confident are you Colombia will become a full-fledged member of the OECD, and if so, when?
Very confident. I think the process is irreversible. Colombia will become a member of the OECD. We expect that this will happen in a year from now, in the next ministerial meeting of the OECD, that Colombia will be given full accession. This is important for us. The OECD...
As a symbol or more than that?
More than that. I mean, the OECD is essentially a group of countries that has the best practices in a number of areas: education policies, economic issues, trade, labor. And the fact that a country complies with all these standards is very positive. I think it gives confidence to investors. It attracts more capital. It generates more jobs. So if you think about Colombia's strategies, we will go on separate tracks: peace and OECD accession, but they will actually converge, and they will happen more or less at the same time. And I think this is going to be very positive for accelerating development in Colombia. This is going to be very good news for the living standards of Colombians.
I want to get to the so-called Panama Papers. Obviously, Panama is very close to Colombia. You said recently that 2/3 of over 1,200 Colombians that appeared in the Panama Papers documents that were leaked have not paid taxes, have evaded taxes because they did not report their foreign assets.
That's absolutely true. I mean,
it's a shocking number. I mean,
it is a shocking number. We looked at the website where the Panama Papers are posted. We took all the names that are related to Colombia, either corporations or individuals. Even further, we went to the Bogota offices of this law firm from Panama, Mossack and Fonseca, to see what else was there, to get more information. And that's how we found that about 1,200 Colombians were related to the Panama Papers. And then we looked at their tax filings, and we found that 65% of those names had not filed a declaration with these assets they own through a Panama corporation.
And those are not just people. Those are really elite people, the leaders of the country in many ways, yes, and the economy.
But then we also offered, and this was a very fortunate coincidence, we had established by law an amnesty that allows Colombians to report whatever holdings they have of assets outside Colombia and file a declaration saying that they had omitted that in previous declarations, but now they have to pay 11% as a penalty. So many Colombians use that opportunity to normalize their situation and report, as they have to, it's their legal obligation, all their assets abroad.
I want to get very quickly to the regional situation. Another neighbor of Colombia, Venezuela, very difficult social, economic, and political situation. Are you afraid that there will be a meltdown or an explosion in Venezuela that could hurt your country?
Well, things in Venezuela are hard and they're getting harder. We have a very significant border.
It's closed now, by the
Now
way.
it's closed. It's the decision of Venezuela to shut down that border. Trade between our two countries is now at the minimum. It used to be over $6 billion a year. It's now less than $800 million. The normalization of the situation in Venezuela is very important for us. So we keep an eye on what's going on in Venezuela, and we're always willing to help, to provide support. We have an economy that also depends on oil. We know how to run an economy under the circumstances of a declining oil prices. We can share that experience, and we're ready to help.
Can you mediate between the President Maduro and the opposition, or is it not for Colombia
Well,
to do?
President Santos has said we're willing to help in whatever way the Venezuelans think it's constructive. We are ready to come with, say, the multilateral banks like the Inter-American Development Bank or the World Bank. We're willing to be a facilitator, especially to figure out the best economic decisions to sort out and resolve that crisis. Because if the Venezuelan economy does well, we do well. It's good for us.
Are you afraid it's too late?
Even if it's too late, there are some decisions that need to be made, and they have to be made. And I think the circumstances now suggest that it's absolutely mandatory that they make those decisions regarding the economy, the economic management.
Okay, thank you very much, Mauricio Cardenas, for coming on the France 24/7. And thank you for watching this edition of The Interview. Stay tuned for more news.